Hello and good evening, my beautiful, ambitious women, and welcome to Training Tuesday. Very excited to have you guys here. We have a really fun, not fun topic for tonight, but I'm really actually looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to sharing with you the process that we use to navigate difficult emotions and situations where we've screwed up. And that's really what we're talking about tonight, right? How do we bounce back after we've made a mistake? Or sometimes after we've made many mistakes. So, as always, give me a second here as we set up. I want to make sure that I capture this on the other screen so that if you guys are making comments or questions or any good stuff like that while we're live, that I can see it. Sometimes it takes a moment for it to pop up. Here we go. Okay. So, it's Training Tuesday, and the topic tonight is about how we bounce back after we've made a mistake, or in my case, as I will share with you, many mistakes. And it's more than just resilience, right? Coming back from making a mistake, coming back from any situation, right, where if you use the Brene Brown example of the Roosevelt quote of, the man in the arena, and we fall down and we're we're in the arena and we're rumbling with the hard stuff and we fall down and we have to get back up and we have to dust ourselves off. And I love that whole approach that Brene Brown has to resilience and to strength and to leadership. But what I wanted to zero in on tonight was the fact that sometimes the falling down and the rumbling and the getting dirty, it's not because we're charging up the mountain. It's not because we're tackling the hard stuff. It's because we messed up. It's because we made a choice, we took an action, and it turned out to maybe not be the best course of action. It turned out to be a mistake. It turned out to be a misjudgment, and it falls on us. So that's where I want to focus tonight, on how do you bounce back from that when you're carrying the weight of this guilt and shame and anger and all this other stuff, which we'll talk through in a minute. How do you bounce back from that and move forward and still feel that you're a leader and that you're confident and that you have the right to be here? So before I dive in, first of all, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Natalie Hahn. I am CEO of Dirty Girls Consulting, and you are here in our fabulous group, Accelerating Leadership for Professional Women. And this is Training Tuesday, where every Tuesday we get together and we talk about tools and strategies and concepts around stepping into our confidence, stepping up as leaders, as women. And these tools and these things that we talk about affect all areas of our life, not just our careers, but it affects how we interact in relationships, what we do in our personal lives, and the choices we make as we're building a life for ourselves. So for those of you joining me live, I would love for you to say hello in the chat. And Jackie's there. Hey, Jackie, we need to catch up. Say hello in the chat. Tell me where you're from. Say hello to each other. And it's Christine. Yay. Thank you guys for joining tonight. And as always, ask questions, make comments, share your own stories as we go through this. And I am going to start by sharing with you a few of the ways that I screwed up in the past. I'm going to say 10 days to 2 weeks is kind of where it started really going downhill. And I'm going to share with you what something common that we all do, which is, oh, hey, Sue, good to see you. There is often when we have something like what I experienced in the last 2 weeks, which was a series of errors that I made, there's usually a triggering event. And there was. And what I want to talk about tonight is how the fact that there may be a triggering event doesn't actually excuse our mistakes, but that is where we gravitate towards. So I had a triggering event start. It started about a week to 2 weeks ago, a week to a week and a half ago, that changed some dynamics just at home personally in my family situation. Everything's fine, but it was significant enough that it was impactful to everybody. And from that moment, really, and I would even say it from a day or two building up to that triggering event, I made a series of really not good decisions at all. And some of them, I would say, damaging decisions. So we all make mistakes. We own that. I made a slew. So one example of where it kind of started was not this past Sunday, but a week before. I call my mother every week. My parents live across the country from me. I don't get to see them that often. So I call every week to check in. And, every now and then if I miss a week here or there, it's typically not a big deal. Hey, Jill, good to see you. And Rose, oh, good. I'm finally catching up on everybody's comments. It's not such a big deal if I miss a week or so, but I missed the weekend, which was probably the one weekend of the year that I really should call. I missed the weekend that was my brother's birthday. And the reason that's significant is because 8 years ago, my brother died from cancer. So you would think that the remaining child would actually call and check on her parents. And I didn't. I was so wrapped up in what was going on in my own little world that I didn't call my parents and check in on them that week. And I didn't have a great excuse to give them at the time. I just knew things were kind of boiling up here. So that was the first one. This led to me missing 2 deadlines with work, 2 deadlines actually with this work, with Dirty Girls, and coaching and providing materials and resources for you guys, which has since cascaded into me falling behind on multiple projects. So now I've got guilt of not calling my mother, and I've got stress now because I am behind on things that I've committed to provide for you guys for resources, which, by the way, is also what I love to do. Because of all the pressure of what was going on, I fled town for a couple days. And that was definitely probably one of my biggest mistakes. I fled town. I got out of town and I was like, I'm still accessible by phone. People can still reach me, but I left and I shouldn't have. Given what was happening in my home life, I needed to be here and I didn't. And then I made plans with friends in the midst of all this and changed the plans. Like I coordinated the plans and then I changed the plans multiple times without any thought to their plans. And this was all about my being fluid with my schedule and needing to accommodate other things. So I'm listing all this stuff because I'm really not a terrible daughter, friend, or mother. I'm really not. But I made really poor choices in the last 2 weeks. And I can look back at that and I can give you reasons why. Here's one of the stages we go through, right, of rationalization. So let me just say that the result of all of this meant this past weekend, I spent a ton of time doing that wonderful navel-gazing, soul-searching of, oh my gosh, what the hell is wrong with me, right? Where am I at and what am I doing that these were the choices I made? What caused all this and how do I pull back so that I don't just keep compounding one bad choice after another? Because this is what happens when we make a mistake and we don't catch it or we're not fully aware or conscious of the choices we're making, we can do what I did, which is make a series of following decisions that are just as bad, if not worse than the first, right? For me, as I think you can see from the pattern, I just started pulling back and disengaging, right? It started with not talking to my mother on a week that I should have, and it moved to disengaging at work, to disengaging at home, to disengaging with friends and fleeing, right? I get stressed, put my head in the sand, here I go. So yeah, coaches, even though we're aware of it, we're all human and we're all subject, right, to these failings. So I spent a lot of time this weekend thinking about this, which is why I wanted to actually talk about it and share it with you guys this week. Like, while it's still fresh in my mind about, yes, we could talk about old patterns and old childhood behaviors and why I did that and all the impacts, but that's not what tonight is about. Tonight is about how do you stop the brain self-flagellation, right? The ruminating in your head about all the things that you did wrong and beating yourself up for being a terrible friend, a terrible mother, a terrible person, and get yourself back on track to the person that you know you are and that you know you can and you want to be. So I'm just going to pause there for you guys. I don't know if any of you can relate to this, or if I don't know if you've had I literally had a moment where I was like, are the planets misaligned? Like, what did I do? Is karma just trying to beat me around a little bit? But would love to hear if you've had similar experiences where you kind of made one mistake and it just sort of dominoed and suddenly you had a crap week, not just a bad day or a bad decision. pretty sure I'm not the only one out here. And I think that's why you guys are tuning in. So here's what happens when we fall in that pattern, right? Typically the flow is that the first sort of step we fall into when we make a mistake is the recognition. Oh, I messed up. It's that moment of recognition of I made a mistake. And that moment is usually, I think what I called in one of the promos for this, like it's anguish. It's, oh no, I can't believe I did that, right? It's that moment of pain. It's acknowledgement that I did something and there's pain here. And typically in that moment, we're replaying in our head. We're doing what I call rumination, right? Or chewing the cud like the cows do, just over and over and over again. Replaying every decision I made, every conversation I had that led to that decision, and trying to figure out, God, how did I get there? And as you've heard me talk about before, we have a whole separate Training Tuesday on rumination, right? Playing those scenes in your head over and over, waste of energy. They get you nowhere. So just, you've got to move on. But that's typically where we start, right? Self-flagellation. We beat ourselves up over the mistakes and we replay them over and over and over, wishing we had done something differently, made a different call, whatever. We move from that into the self-pity, right? And so self-flagellation is the start of it, but then we wallow in this self-pity of, oh, poor me, I really screwed things up. What can I do now? Yeah, Jackie, you're right. Yeah, we're our own worst enemies. And that's something I would say in that. I'm my own worst enemy. I can't get out of my own way. Poor me. And some of us, and we know people like this, even if we're not one of them, some of us can live in the self-pity space. Oh, poor me. The world has just had to get me. There's nothing I can do about it. Oh, well, there's nothing I can do. And some of us stop there. Others of us, when a mistake is made, move to the next level, which is we wallow in our pity. We have our pity party. We drag other people into our pity party. Oh, I made a mistake and I'm so sorry. Feel sorry for me. The next phase is sometimes, or I shouldn't say something, the next phase is anger. Then we get mad. We get mad at ourselves, but we get mad at other people too, or we get mad at the situation. And with this anger comes the phase of rationalization. This is the phase where we're mad because the universe threw all this stuff in my way. So the way I was looking at it, right, initially when I realized that I had made all these stupid mistakes was, oh my God, I can't believe I was that stupid. And if only this thing hadn't happened in my family, we would be fine. This never would have happened. I never would have let it get out of control. I can't believe this thing happened. And I start shifting the blame. Well, if only so-and-so hadn't said this, then we wouldn't have had that conversation. And if only this other thing had happened the right way over here, right? If only, I'm trying to think specific to my situations. So if only this event hadn't happened in my family, then I wouldn't have been late at work, right? With my work stuff and behind on Dirty Girls. And I wouldn't have felt the need to flee out of town. And anyway, I thought I could manage the whole out of town thing because it wasn't that far away. And I was coming back to town every day anyway. So that should be fine, right? I'm still going to see everybody every day. I'm just going to go spend the majority of my day in this other place away from everybody. And my friends should be fine being flexible. They know I have all this other stuff going on. They should know that I can't necessarily commit to things even though I say I'm going to. So I was rationalizing all this stuff and I was getting mad, right? Why are these people giving me a hard time? And why am I being held accountable to this standard that normally is incredibly important to me to hold, but I have this other stuff going on and I just can't focus. The challenge with the rationalization phase is that it sounds right. It sounds right. We've rationalized it. Yes, I had a major life event happen. Yes, it was significant. Yes, it impacted everybody. And so I use it as the excuse for every other choice I made and how I could work my preferred choices around it. Instead of simply stepping back and taking responsibility for the fact that this thing happened and it shook me up enough that I made a few really poor choices, but those poor choices are on me. Regardless of this event, I made those choices. I let myself get spun up. I let myself get reactive and I made poor choices. So the challenge with the rationalization when we get caught in this phase where we start to get a little angry and we start to place blame or justify our actions is that it sounds and feels right. Because when we rationalize anything, it sounds logical, right? You rationalize having an ice cream sundae on Saturday because you were good Monday through Friday with all those salads, right? We rationalize choices that we make when we know somewhere we shouldn't be making those choices. It's really not in our best interest, or it's really not what we want to do or the outcome we're looking for. It serves a more short-term, immediate desire, but not necessarily a need, right? It serves a desire. It serves instant gratification. Doesn't necessarily serve the need towards the long-term goal, but we rationalize. So we can also get stuck in this phase, and we can live here forever, rationalizing our choices, rationalizing the mistakes we made, making sure everybody understands I don't normally make those choices, but there were extenuating circumstances. But these other things happened, and it just worked out that way, right? So we move into that. Then we move into corrective action. What am I going to do about it? Well, and that's only if we get past the rationalization. Okay, well, I have to do something about it. Am I going to apologize? Am I going to take a different action? Am I going to change my behavior, right? What am I going to do about it? So there's a different kinds of corrective action we can take. And I'm going to get into those in a minute. But right now, I just want to kind of walk you through the process. And then finally, if we're truly aware and paying attention, not only do we take corrective action, but then we step back and we start reflecting. What can I do to prevent me from doing this again? Now, am I going to make mistakes again? Yes. Am I going to do something that's going to hurt my parents, my kids, my partner, my friends again? Probably. Probably I will. But can I make sure it's not this thing? Is there something I can do to ensure that the next time I'm faced with the choice to step up or to hide, that maybe I don't choose hiding? Yeah. So what are the things I can do to figure out that? What's my go forward plan from there? Now, and then how do I define that action and integrate it into my life? Now, those pieces are all part of what I call the ARIA process. Every stage is part of the ARIA process. And the ARIA process is a process I developed with two other coaches on how do we process difficult emotions. The foundation of it was we were working with clients who were going through some very difficult times and processing difficult emotions like grief, like anger, like loneliness and sadness, right? Those are tough. So we wanted to provide our clients with a framework that gave them something concrete to kind of work through and understand sort of what phase are you in. So I'm going to go back over those phases, but I'm going to talk to you about them in context of ARIA and the what we do, the how we manage this. So the first part of the A in ARIA is for awareness. The first step is knowing that you screwed up. It's knowing that you made a mistake. Right. So the first step in this process is that recognition, that moment of anguish where we go, oh, I messed up. So awareness is first. I messed up. Who am I impacting? How did I impact them? How did I impact me? Right. It's getting awareness. So that phase of the anguish and the wallowing, the rumination and the wallowing, right? The replay in your head of everything that happened. And then the self-pity, oh, poor me. That's all part of that awareness phase of, holy cow, I did something that had a consequence that I did not intend. So that's awareness. That's okay. There's a problem. The R in ARIA is the recognition. Okay, it had an impact. And now I have to figure out, like, of this impact, the depth of the impact. What does this mean? Because I'm setting myself up for how am I going to solve it. But in the recognition piece, we're getting really clear on what does this mean and where did this come from? So my ARIA piece was the holy cow, here's the series of decisions which I shared with you that I made that impacted other people, that had consequences in a way I never intended. That I'm like, holy cow, I have problems on my hand that I created. I have created a not pleasant situation for me and for my loved ones. The recognition piece came in of, okay, what is the impact this had? How did this affect my boys? How does this affect my friends? How did this affect my parents? Right? What is the impact that I've had? And then what brought me here? What is the impact this had on me? Because we can't leave ourselves out of the equation. Part of getting through a process of dealing with difficult emotions, including that of screwing up and trying to find your resilience and your strength to come back, is having that bit of compassion for yourself. For yourself first and foremost, because when we're in that self-flagellation stage of, boy, I screwed up, we're not likely to give ourselves a lot of grace. We're too busy focused on everything we did wrong. So recognition is part of the process of, hey, this impacted me too, and I deserve a little grace here. I'm human. I'm going to mess up. Doesn't excuse what happened. But if I'm going to get through this, I have to give myself a little bit of grace. We have to. We have to be as generous with ourselves as we would be to our friends, to our family members. So recognition of the impact this has on other people as well as on you. Now the I in ARIA, sorry, my comments went away. I want to make sure if you guys are making any comments, I can see that. And please do feel free to comment or ask questions. If I go through this and it's not clear, by all means, jump in. The I is integration. Integration is where we start to determine, okay, I've done this thing, and I'm sorry, let me skip that. Recognition is not just recognizing the impact, it's deciding what's next. It's the corrective action. I'm recognizing that I did this thing and I'm taking corrective action to fix it. So recognition is that part where you apologize or you change your action, where you decide to do something different in order to create the new situation. Integration is where instead of charging forward, right, and just taking the immediate action to fix things, integration is where we step back and say, what did I learn about this? Now, what did I learn about this is what did I learn about myself in this process? And what did I learn about the other people around me who I impacted? What did I learn about this situation? So it's being reflective on what came out of this. And, you know, it's so cliche. So I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it. It's so cliche to say, what did you learn from this? You can get something good out of every situation. But the truth is you can. The truth is maybe getting something good is a stretch. But learning something is absolutely possible out of every mistake we make. Even if all we learn is, never doing that again. That's a learning. You know, I'll use a different tone of voice next time. I'll use different phrasing next time. I will make sure there isn't a next time. These are all learnings. So integration is integrating for yourself. What did I take out of this experience? So it's spending time, whether you're journaling or you're talking to someone, whether you're talking to someone professionally, you're seeing a therapist or a coach, or whether you're talking to your friends, but it's truly integrating the lessons that you took away from this experience. And then the last A in ARIA is disciplined action. And that's the part where you're going to define what's the next step you take. Now that this situation is behind you, what is the next step you take to ensure that you are making different choices going forward? Disciplined action is about not just learning and integrating from our experience here, but literally creating new habits and patterns in yourself, right? So the exercise I have to figure out, right? The exercise I'm still in the integrate and disciplined action phase is, what am I going to do to make sure the next time I'm faced with this level of stress, because there will be a next time, that I don't bury my head in the sand and try to hide, that I step up and into it more than I step away from it. What can I tell myself? What can I do for myself? How do I remind myself who it is I want to be in this situation? And that's the big part, right? Who is it that you want to be? Who is that person you want to show up as? Because when we're under stress, we tend to forget that person and we revert to the person we've always been, or the person we were raised to be, right? We were under stress. we revert to old patterns. So how do you start breaking the old patterns? It starts with step number 1, which is awareness. Now, I want to go back to one piece of this. So ARIA, awareness, recognition, integration, disciplined action. That's what that acronym stands for. I want to go back to one piece, which is when we talk about taking corrective action, right? When we're at that phase in recognition where, okay, I've recognized the problem, I've recognized the impact, and now I have to do something about this. I have to take some sort of action to, and this is about the immediate situation. This is about fixing the immediate situation, not your reflective piece. This is just we're off the tracks. I need to get back on the tracks. There's probably more, but there's kind of 3 approaches I defined that you could take to your corrective action. So the first approach is the just fix it. The first approach is this mindset that says, the train has gone off the tracks. I just got to drag it back on the tracks any way I can, as fast as I can in any way I can. Put this thing back on track. That's one choice. Your second choice is, I want to fix this, and the best way to fix this is, how do I make everyone else I impacted feel better? So let me put it this way. Looking at my situation, let's take the not calling my mom. Corrective action under the stress of, I just need to get this back on track, would be picking up the phone and calling her right away. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm calling you now. And 2 days later, 1 day later, whatever it is, but I'm calling you now. And just feeling like, as fast as I can, I'm going to try to get things like back to normal as fast as possible. The second way is, how do I do this in a way that ensures she feels better? So my second approach might be more considerate of, well, I hurt my mom by not reaching out. So what could I do to let her know that I'm aware that I hurt her, and make sure she feels better about the situation? So maybe I'm sending her a card, or maybe I am calling her right away, but letting her know, ensuring that in that conversation, I'm letting her know just how badly I feel that I didn't reach out and that I was thinking of my brother as well, right? I start approaching it now from not from a how do I get it back on track, but how do I make her feel better, right? How do we make the person or the situation we impacted better? The third approach is the outcome-based approach, which is, what is the best possible outcome for this situation? So it's not how do I get it back on track as fast as possible. And it's not what's best for that other person. It's, given this entire scenario, what could be the best thing I could do? So maybe I look at it as, okay, I'm not going to call my mom right away because that doesn't solve the problem. I already missed the date. And I'm not going to worry about falling on my sword with a bunch of apologies so much and making her feel better, because what I really want to do is make sure that we both feel like we've taken some time and we've honored my brother. So maybe instead, I create a whole other way for us to do that. Maybe instead of the phone call, I send her, I don't know, send her flowers, or send her something, some memorial of my brother. Maybe I find an old photo of my brother and I send it to her with it. I'm sorry it's late and I'm sorry that I hurt you, but I'm thinking of you both and I wanted you to have this old picture from when we were kids, right? I'm trying to create then a bigger opportunity. I'm trying to create a bigger win-win. So I feel good because I've put in some extra effort. I've created something that is really cool and neat for both of us. And I've reached out to her to try to smooth over the situation, right? So 3 different approaches. One is fix it, get it back on track as soon as possible. One is focus on the other person involved and make sure they feel better. And 3 is step back, look at the bigger picture, and see if you can create something kind of bigger and better out of what was a poor situation, right? So that last one is a little bit of the whole, how do we make lemonade out of lemons? I had to think, I was going to say, how do we make lemonade out of lemons, right? How do I make this even better? So I just want you to think about that when you're in that stage of trying to fix the immediate hurt or the immediate challenge. You have options for how you approach it. Okay, now back to ARIA overall. Awareness, recognition, integration, disciplined action. Why does this process help you bounce back? This is a process that requires you to have actually a great deal. I was going to say a little bit of, but actually a great deal of self-awareness and willingness to look at who you are and look at the life you want to create. And what this process does is it takes you through the accountability for the choices that you made, and it refocuses your energy on, yeah, but who do I want to be? Who do I want to show up as? When we lose sight of our longer term goals and objectives, when we lose sight of that woman that we want to be on what I call the porch perspective, and some of you have heard me talk about that, right? That when you're 90 years old and sitting on your front porch and you're looking back at your life, let's just assume by 90 years in a rocking chair on a front porch. Some of you will be out dancing, but assuming that some of you are sitting on your front porch and you're looking back at the decades of your life, what do you want that to look like? What do you want to say about you as the woman who lived that life? When we lose sight of that vision of who we want to be and how we want to lose our life, that's when we lose sight of our boundaries. We lose sight of our values. We lose sight of our guiding principles for how we make decisions and how we make choices in our life. And keep in mind, like I said, when we're stressed, that's when we're tested. Because when we're under stress, we revert back to old patterns. To break those old patterns and make new decisions, we have to practice the disciplined action. It's not easy, but it's not complicated. It's just hard work. So that is why going through the process of awareness of the mistake, recognition of the impact, and how you're going to choose to make an immediate fix, even if the immediate fix could be something as simple as just saying you're sorry. Sometimes that's all you can do. Spending time to integrate, understanding the impact on you as well as the impact on others, and then defining your disciplined action to do things differently. Going through those steps deepens your self-awareness, deepens your connection with the person that you want to be, with the woman that you want to be, both now and 10, 20, 30 years into the future, so that you can keep holding on to that vision as your guiding light. That's tonight's Training Tuesday. Bouncing back from messing up. We bounce back faster with more resiliency and with more confidence when we know who we are, when we know what we believe in, when we know what's important to us, our values, our guiding principles, our boundaries. Those are the keys. All right. Thank you for joining me tonight, ladies. I love Training Tuesday. I love seeing all of you guys here. Drop any comments or questions you have in the chat. As always, if you're looking to dig a little bit deeper into either how you bounce back, going through the ARIA process, or your goals and who that is you want to be when you're 90 years old and sitting on your front porch, then I invite you to drop the word dig in the chat, and we will have a 15-minute Dirty Girl mini dig where we will get together and we will chat just about you. You and where you want to go, you and what is the next step to get you closer to that goal. These principles that I teach on Training Tuesdays are all part of the group program that I have, as well as our one-on-one coaching programs. When we work together with one-on-one, we go through these conversations as well. So would love to work with any of you ladies. It starts though with just drop the word dig in the chat. We'll have that quick 15-minute conversation and see if we can't get you one step closer to your goal. In the meantime, you have the ARIA process, so you know how to bounce back should you have a week like I had and mess up. I hope you guys have a fabulous night, and I look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday.